She was beautiful. So beautiful that no one ever bothered to ask how she felt on the inside. But one day, she shattered the mirror. And it was there, among the broken pieces, that she finally saw herself for real. This isn't a story about beauty. It's a story about what happens when a woman realizes her soul is worth more than her image. She was beautiful, and everyone made sure she knew that. Kate was 25, skin like porcelain, naturally golden waves, bright green eyes. Wherever she went, she turned heads. At the gym, at the bakery, walking down the street, compliments poured in like rain, and for a long time, she believed beauty was enough. She worked at a beauty clinic in a trendy part of town, one of those places that sold quick transformations and polished smiles. But she wasn't just a pretty face. She was also a skincare specialist, trained, competent, and extremely dedicated. Still, most people didn't notice that. What they said the most was, "Wow, you should be a model. What do you use on your skin? It's perfect." With a face like that, you don't even need to try. Kate smiled. Always. It was automatic, mechanical. But inside, something was starting to crack. At home, in front of her mirror, things were different. She would take off her makeup slowly, look into her own eyes and ask, "Would anyone love me if I didn't look like this?" She didn't have an answer, and the silence echoed. One afternoon, while organizing product samples in the clinic, Kate overheard a conversation between two co-workers. "Kate, she's gorgeous, right? But I don't know anything about her." "Exactly. I think she doesn't talk much. Or maybe there's not much to her." Kate froze. They weren't being malicious, but that made it worse. They were just saying what everyone thought. And at that moment, a phrase struck her like lightning. "They see my face, but they don't see me." It was the first time she truly felt invisible, hidden behind her own appearance. She didn't know it yet, but something inside her had begun to change, and no filter could cover that. Kate had mastered the art of smiling. She smiled when clients praised her skin. She smiled when strangers said she was lucky to be born beautiful. She smiled when men looked at her like she was a trophy. But deep down, she was tired. Tired of being reduced to her looks. Tired of the silence that followed every compliment, as if beauty were the only story she had to tell. At night, in her apartment, Kate would sit on the edge of her bed and scroll through social media. There she was, in dozens of selfies, perfectly lit, perfectly filtered. But those images didn't reflect how she really felt. "Who am I without the smile?" she thought. She tried to open up once. One night, while talking with a guy she had been seeing for a few weeks, she said, "Sometimes I feel like no one really knows me." He looked at her, confused. "But you're beautiful. Isn't that enough?" She felt the words stab her, not because they were cruel, but because they were real. For him, and for many others, beauty was enough. But for Kate, it was becoming a prison. She started avoiding social events, turned down dates, posted less. And when she did post, the likes didn't give her the same thrill. What she craved now was something deeper: connection, authenticity, a real reflection of who she was inside. One night, standing in front of the mirror, she whispered, "I want to be more than what they see." And for the first time in years, she didn't smile back at her own reflection. She just stared and saw the sadness behind the makeup. The days passed, and Kate began to feel more distant from the world around her. Her co-workers noticed her quietness, her eyes no longer sparkling like they used to. She still looked stunning, but something in her presence had dimmed. One morning, while preparing a facial treatment room, Kate glanced at the mirror on the wall. For a moment, she froze. She saw herself. Not the version she was used to showing. Not the polished, camera-ready image, but the tired, empty gaze of someone who had spent too long performing a role that didn't belong to her anymore. That moment stayed with her the rest of the day. She started questioning everything. Why did she always feel the need to be perfect? Why did she feel guilty for wanting to be seen beyond her looks? Why was she so afraid of showing who she really was? A few days later, something unexpected happened. A client, a woman in her 50s, came in for a routine session. During the consultation, she looked at Kate and said, "You remind me of myself when I was younger. I wasted so many years thinking beauty was everything. But real peace only came when I started living from the inside out." Kate was caught off guard. She didn't know what to say, but she felt something shift inside her, as if that woman had voiced what Kate had never dared to say out loud. After the appointment, Kate went to the bathroom, looked at her reflection, and asked, "What if I'm not as afraid of being seen as I am of not being truly known?" And in that question, she found her first glimpse of courage. Kate began to change, quietly, subtly, but unmistakably. She stopped wearing makeup on some days. Not out of rebellion, but out of curiosity. She wanted to know how it felt to be seen as she truly was. The first time she showed up at work barefaced, the silence was loud. One coworker asked, confused, "Are you feeling okay?" Another whispered, "Is she going through something?" But Kate smiled, this time genuinely, and simply said, "I'm just letting myself breathe." That week, a marketing company contacted her via Instagram. They offered her money to promote a line of beauty drinks. The message was flattering. They loved her aesthetic and said she was the perfect face for their brand. But something in the message made her stomach turn. They didn't know her. They didn't care who she was or what she believed. They just wanted her face. Kate stared at the email for a long time and then hit delete. That moment felt small to the world, but enormous to her. It was the first time she said no to something that didn't align with her soul. That same night, she sat down and began to write. Not a post, not a caption, not something to impress or perform. She wrote for herself. About the pressure, about the mask, about the fear of not being enough when the beauty faded, and about the desire to be real, flawed, evolving, human. For the first time in a long time, Kate felt proud, not for how she looked, but for who she was becoming. The changes Kate made on the outside were small, subtle shifts, fewer filters, quieter posts. But on the inside, a revolution was happening. She started talking more openly with clients, not just about beauty routines, but about emotions, insecurities, real life. And something surprising happened. Women opened up to her. One woman cried during a facial, saying she felt invisible to her own family. Another confessed she hadn't looked in the mirror for weeks. Kate no longer felt like she was playing a part. She was building real connections. And it was in those raw, emotional moments that she finally understood. True beauty is a shared experience. It doesn't separate women. It unites them. One evening, she received a voice message from that same client who once compared Kate to her younger self. In a soft, sincere tone, she said, "Kate, I just wanted to say thank you. You helped me feel seen again. I don't know how you did it, but I left your clinic lighter." Kate listened to that message over and over, and with tears in her eyes, whispered to herself, "Maybe I don't need to be seen by everyone. Just seen for real, by someone." She looked in the mirror. No makeup, no lights, just her. And for the first time, she saw herself. Months had passed. Kate's life hadn't become perfect. She still had doubts, still had days where she felt small. but something fundamental had changed. She no longer measured her worth by the compliments she received, but by the peace she felt when she looked in the mirror. She had found her true reflection. One morning, a new client entered the clinic, a young woman, maybe 19 or 20. Beautiful, nervous, and full of insecurity. During the consultation, she looked at Kate and asked, "How do you always seem so confident?" Kate smiled, not the automatic smile, not the polished one, but a quiet, honest smile, and she replied, "Confidence doesn't come from knowing you're beautiful. It comes from knowing who you are, even when no one else does." The girl nodded slowly, as if those words had landed exactly where they needed to. That night, Kate lit a candle in her apartment, poured herself a cup of tea, and opened her journal. She wrote, "Today, I was someone I wish I had met when I was younger. Today, I saw beauty beyond the surface." She closed the notebook, leaned back, and smiled again, this time just for herself. And in the silence of that room, one truth echoed louder than ever. I am more than what they see. And that is where my power begins. If this story touched your heart, share it with a woman who needs to be reminded of how beautiful she truly is, beyond appearances. And subscribe to the Stay Bella channel, because here, beauty begins in the soul.